Nurses aren't real medical professionals. We only want doctors and executives at Christmas dinner this year, my brother announced over speakerphone as I stood in the cardiac unit, holding the heart of a 12-year-old boy in my hands during emergency surgery. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was literally saving a child's life while being told I wasn't professional enough to pass the mashed potatoes. The real question wasn't whether I'd show up anyway. It was whether they'd survive what happened when I did. The heart began beating again under my careful manipulation, and Dr. Patel nodded at me with relief as we continued the complex repair. Beautiful work, Stanton. Don't know what we'd do without you. I couldn't respond verbally. My focus was absolute, my hands steady despite the fury building in my chest. My brother Marcus's voice continued through my AirPods, which I'd forgotten to disconnect when the emergency call came in. Are you even listening, Maya? He demanded. This is important. The Caldwell family has an image to maintain now that I'm partner at the firm. We can't have you showing up in your scrubs talking about bedpans and blood. It's embarrassing. My surgical assistant, James, must have seen something in my eyes because he reached over and double-tapped my AirPod, ending the call. You okay, Chief? I refocused on the delicate sutures I was placing. Fine. Let's close up. This kid's going to have a great Christmas. 2 hours later, after successfully completing one of the most complex pediatric cardiac surgeries of my career, I finally sat in my office and let Marcus's words sink in. Just a nurse. Embarrassing. Not a real medical professional. I looked at my wall of certifications and degrees. BSN from Johns Hopkins. MSN from Yale. PhD in nursing practice. Board certifications in critical care, cardiac surgery, and pediatrics. 20 years of experience. Chief Nursing Officer of St. Mary's Hospital, overseeing 3,000 nurses and managing a $200 million budget. Published researcher. Keynote speaker at international medical conferences. But to my family, I was just a nurse. My phone buzzed with texts from other family members. My sister Vanessa. Don't take it personally, Maya. You know how Marcus is about appearances. My mother. Maybe if you'd married Richard like we suggested, you'd be a doctor's wife instead of, well, you know. My father. Your brother has a point. The Hendersons and the Wallaces will be there. All doctors and lawyers. We need to present properly. I screenshotted every message. Then I did something I'd never done before. I opened LinkedIn and changed my privacy settings to public. Let them Google me. Let them see what just a nurse really meant. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of surgeries, administrative meetings, and strategic planning. I didn't respond to any family messages, didn't argue or plead my case. Instead, I prepared for something better. On December 23rd, I received an emergency call. Major multi-vehicle accident on I-95. All hands needed. As Chief Nursing Officer, I didn't have to respond to emergency calls anymore, but this was going to be big, and my teams needed leadership. The emergency department was controlled chaos when I arrived. Victims streaming in, families crying, staff working with choreographed precision. I jumped into triage, assessing and directing, when I heard a familiar voice screaming, I need a doctor, not a neurosi. Get me a real doctor. I turned to see my brother Marcus being wheeled in on a gurney, his designer suit torn and bloody, his left leg bent at an unnatural angle. Behind him, my father limped in with a gash on his forehead, and my mother clutched her arm against her chest. The family Christmas party. They'd been driving to the Hendersons' estate when the accident happened. I stepped back, letting my staff handle them initially. Professional distance, I told myself, though my hands itched to help despite everything. Where's the doctor? Marcus continued to shout. I don't want some incompetent nurse touching me. I'll sue this entire hospital. Dr. Harrison, our head of emergency medicine, appeared at my shoulder. Want me to handle your family, Chief? Follow protocol, I said evenly. They're patients, nothing more. But then I saw her, my sister Vanessa's 8-year-old daughter, Lily, being carried in by a paramedic. Unconscious. Pale. Blood in her golden hair. Traumatic head injury. The paramedic called out. 8-year-old female. Unresponsive. Possible internal bleeding. Everything else faded away. I moved without thinking, my hands already assessing before I'd even reached her. Get me a pediatric trauma kit. Set up or 3. Call surgery. Tell them we're coming up hot. Maya? Vanessa's voice cracked as she stumbled in behind her daughter. Maya, please. Save her. Please. I met her eyes briefly. I've got her. The best surgeon, Vanessa sobbed. Get the best surgeon. Money's no object. You're looking at her, James said as he appeared with the trauma kit. Your sister's the best we've got. I was already moving, calling out vitals and observations as we rushed toward the elevator. Behind me, I could hear Marcus's voice. Wait, what? Maya's not a surgeon. She's just a... The elevator doors closed on his words. Or 3 was ready when we arrived. My surgical team, the best in the state, moved like a well-oiled machine. Dr. Thompson, the neurosurgeon, scrubbed in beside me. What do you think, Chief? I studied the scans. Subdural hematoma with midline shift. We need to move fast. Your call, he said simply. Lead the way. For the next 3 hours, I fought for my niece's life. Every skill I'd learned, every technique I'd mastered, every instinct I'd honed over 2 decades came into play. When Dr. Thompson's hands started to shake during a particularly delicate moment, mine remained steady. When the anesthesiologist worried about her blood pressure dropping, I adjusted our approach without missing a beat. Brilliant, Dr. Thompson murmured as I navigated around a particularly dangerous bleeder. Absolutely brilliant. Finally, we were closing. Lily's vitals were stable. The pressure in her brain relieved. The bleeding stopped. She's going to make it, I said, my voice rough with exhaustion and relief. As we wheeled her to recovery, the waiting room came into view through the glass doors. My entire family was there. Marcus in a wheelchair with his leg in a cast. My parents bandaged but ambulatory, Vanessa pacing frantically. Dr. Harrison was with them, clearly trying to explain something, when the doors opened. As I was saying, we're incredibly fortunate that our chief was available. She's the best pediatric surgical nurse in the country. Lily couldn't have been in better hands. Surgical nurse? My mother's voice was sharp. I thought you said she was the surgeon. She is, Dr. Harrison said patiently. Chief Stanton is our lead surgical nurse for complex pediatric cases. She has surgical privileges that exceed most doctors. In fact, she trains our surgical residents. But she's not a doctor, Marcus insisted, his face pale with pain medication, but his snobbery intact. That's when Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the new head of cardiac surgery, walked past. She stopped dead when she saw me. Chief, what are you doing here on your night off? She turned to my family with a warm smile. Is this your family? You must be so proud. I've been trying to recruit her to Johns Hopkins for years. Best surgical nurse in the game. Hell, she's better than half the doctors I work with. Elena, I said quietly. My niece. Traumatic brain injury. Her face immediately shifted to professional concern. Who did the surgery? I did, with Thompson assisting. Thank God, she said fervently. No one I'd trust more. She looked at my family again. You know, your daughter literally wrote the book on pediatric cardiac surgical procedures. We use her techniques at Hopkins, at Harvard, internationally. Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Dr. Rodriguez wasn't done. Chief Stanton, I heard you saved the Watson boy last week. Beautiful work. This from Dr. Kim, our head of pediatrics. Chief, about next week's board meeting. Dr. Patterson, the hospital CEO, stopped beside us. Oh, family visiting? How lovely. You must be incredibly proud. Maya's revolutionized our surgical protocols. Mortality rates down 40% since she took over. One by one, they kept coming. Every doctor, every administrator, every department head who happened to pass by stopped to pay their respects, to ask my opinion, to defer to my judgment. Chief, when you have a moment. Chief, could you review this case? Chief, we need your input on. My father finally found his voice. I don't understand. Maya's a nurse. Just a nurse. Dr. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Just a nurse? Your daughter is the chief nursing officer. She oversees all nursing operations, has full surgical privileges, and sits on the board of directors. Half the doctors here learned their surgical techniques from her. The other half wish they had. But at Christmas, Marcus said only doctors and executives. My mother trailed off. I have an MBA from Wharton, I said quietly. Forgot to mention that. I'm an executive. Chief officer level. Same as any C-suite position in corporate. Actually, my budget's probably bigger than whatever Marcus manages as a junior partner. Vanessa burst into tears. I don't care what any of you are. Is Lily okay? That's all that matters. I softened, moving to embrace my sister. She's going to be fine. Full recovery expected. She'll be awake soon. You saved her. Vanessa sobbed into my shoulder. You saved my baby. Just doing my job, I said. You know, the job that's too embarrassing for Christmas dinner. The waiting room went silent. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice small. Maya, Save it. I cut him off. I've spent years listening to you diminish what I do. Do you know why I became a nurse instead of a doctor? Because nurses save lives. We're the ones at the bedside for 12-hour shifts. We're the ones who catch the mistakes, who notice the subtle changes, who hold your hand when you're scared. And surgical nurses? We're the ones who make sure people like Lily come out of the OR alive. I didn't know, he said weakly. Because you never asked. You just assumed. Nurse equals less than. Well, let me explain something to all of you. This hospital runs because of nurses. Those doctors you're so impressed by, they'll tell you themselves. They're only as good as their nursing team. And I lead the best nursing team in the state. Maya, my father started. I'm not finished. You want to know what I did last week? I performed emergency cardiac surgery on a 12-year-old. Me, not assisting, performing. Because I'm one of 6 nurses in the country certified to do so. The week before that, I presented at the International Medical Conference in Geneva. Next month, I'm testifying before Congress about healthcare reform. I looked at each of them in turn. But sure, I'm just a nurse. Too embarrassing for Christmas dinner. Not a real medical professional. We were wrong, my mother said quietly. We were so wrong. Yes, you were. A small voice from behind me said, Aunt Maya? I turned to see Lily being wheeled out, awake and alert despite the bandages. I moved to her side immediately, checking her pupils, her responses. Hey, sweetheart. How are you feeling? My head hurts, she said, then looked at her parents. Aunt Maya fixed me, right? The nurses said she's the best. Yeah, baby, Vanessa said through fresh tears. Aunt Maya's the best. Marcus cleared his throat. Maya, about Christmas. I have plans, I said simply. Every year, I volunteer at the Children's Ward Christmas party. We have kids who can't go home for the holidays. Kids like the one whose heart I held in my hands while you were uninviting me from dinner. That's where I'll be. Could we come? Vanessa asked hesitantly. To help. I studied my sister. She looked genuine, holding her daughter's hand with a new understanding of what really mattered. The kids would like that, I said finally. Bring presents, lots of them, and leave your judgment at home. Over the next few days, as my family members recovered, they got a first-hand look at what just a nurse really meant. They watched me manage crises, direct teams, make split-second decisions that saved lives. They saw doctors defer to my judgment, saw administrators seek my input, saw patients' families cry with relief when they learned I was on their case. On Christmas morning, they all showed up at the children's ward. Marcus on crutches, my parents moving carefully, Vanessa and Lily, who'd been discharged but insisted on coming, wearing matching Santa hats. "How can we help?" Marcus asked humbly. I handed him a stack of presents. Room 302 has a little boy who loves dinosaurs. Room 304, twin girls who are into princesses. Make sure every kid gets personal attention. As the day went on, I watched my family interact with the sick children, saw their eyes open to a world beyond corporate ladders and social status. Marcus spent an hour reading stories to a 5-year-old cancer patient. My mother helped feed babies in the NICU. My father played chess with a teenager waiting for a heart transplant. "Maya," Vanessa said during a quiet moment, "I need to apologize. Not just for this year, but for every time we made you feel less than. You're not just a nurse. You're a hero." "I'm not a hero," I corrected. "I'm a nursing professional. One of millions who do this work every day without recognition or respect. The only difference is, today you finally saw it." Dr. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway. "Chief, sorry to interrupt Christmas, but we've got a complex case coming in. 10-year-old, rare cardiac condition. I could use your expertise." I looked at my family. "Duty calls." "Go," Marcus said firmly. "Save a life. We'll keep the party going here." As I headed toward the OR, I heard him telling one of the children, "My sister? She's the best surgical nurse in the country. Want to know something cool? She's basically a superhero in scrubs." I smiled as I scrubbed in. It had taken a near tragedy, but my family finally understood. I wasn't just anything. I was a nurse, and that was everything. The 10-year-old surgery was successful. A Christmas miracle, the parents called it. But I knew better. It wasn't a miracle. It was skill, training, dedication, and the kind of expertise that comes from decades of being just a nurse. Later that evening, exhausted but satisfied, I found my family still in the children's ward, now joined by the Hendersons and Wallaces, the very families they'd been so eager to impress. "There she is," Dr. Wallace exclaimed. "Maya, I've been trying to recruit you for my practice for years. These must be your proud parents." As I watched my father beam and my mother gush about their daughter the chief, I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. It shouldn't have taken a crisis and public recognition for them to value what I did. But as Lily ran over to hug me, her bandaged head a reminder of how close we'd come to losing her, I decided to let the past go. They'd learned their lesson. "Best Christmas ever," Lily declared. "I got to see Aunt Maya save people." "Just doing my job," I said, ruffling her hair gently. "Yeah," Marcus said, meeting my eyes with newfound respect. "Just doing the most important job in the world." I looked around at the sick children laughing, my family finally understanding, and my colleagues, my brothers and sisters in scrubs, continuing their life-saving work even on Christmas. "Merry Christmas, everyone," I said. "Now, who wants to help me deliver the evening medications? Real medical professionals only." Marcus raised his hand first. "Can a humble lawyer help?" I smiled. "I suppose we can make an exception. Just this once." As we walked down the hall together, my brother on crutches trying to keep up, he said quietly, "Maya, next Christmas, dinner's at the hospital. The whole family. We'll cater it for your entire staff." "That's more like it," I said. "And Maya? I'm proud to be the brother of just a nurse." I stopped walking, surprised to feel tears in my eyes. "Thanks, Marcus. That means everything." Because in the end, that's all any of us want, not praise for being exceptional, but respect for being exactly who we are. And I was a nurse. Chief or not, surgical privileges or not, executive title or not, I was a nurse. And there was nothing just about it.